Yes, welcome back. I'm laying in my bed and we have 45 minutes left on my camcorder. I just finished reading about Windows XP. Let's get started with Windows Vista, but that's 40 pages. So I need to charge but maybe we could finish tonight because it's 4:45. It's at 5 p.m. soon. So, but we need to charge the camcorder again in like 40 minutes. Read to end of documents.
Windows Vista. Windows Vista version of the Windows NT operating system. Windows Vista logo and wordmark.png. Windows Vista.png. Screenshot of Windows Vista Ultimate, showing its desktop, taskbar, start menu, Windows sidebar, welcome center and glass effects of Windows Aero developer Microsoft source model closed source. Source available through Shared Source Initiative. 1. Released to manufacturing November 8, 2006. 2. General availability January 30, 2007. 3. Final release Service Pack 2 with Security Update Rollup 6.0.6002. 4. October 18, 2016. 5. Update method Windows Update. Windows Server Update Services, SYS. System Center Configuration Manager, SCCM. Platforms IA32 and x86-64 kernel type hybrid, NT. Windows Vista is a major release of the Windows NT operating system developed by Microsoft. It was the direct successor to Windows XP, which was released 5 years before, at the time being the longest time span between successive releases of Microsoft Windows desktop operating systems. Development was completed on the 8th of November, 2006, and over the following 3 months, it was released in stages to computer hardware and software manufacturers, business customers and retail channels. On January 30, 2007, it was released internationally and was made available for purchase and download from the Windows Marketplace. It is the first release of Windows to be made available through a digital distribution platform. 7. New features of Windows Vista include an updated graphical user interface and visual style dubbed Aero, a new search component called Windows Search, redesigned networking, audio, print and display subsystems, and new multimedia tools such as Windows DVD Maker. Vista aimed to increase the level of communication between machines on a home network using peer-to-peer technology to simplify sharing files and media between computers and devices. Windows Vista included version 3.0 of the .NET framework, allowing software developers to write applications without traditional Windows APIs. Windows Vista moved support for devices without ACP. While these new features and security improvements garnered positive reviews, Vista was also the target of much criticism and negative press. Criticism of Windows Vista includes its high system requirements, its more restrictive licensing terms, lack of compatibility, longer boot time, and excessive authorization prompts from user account control. As a result of these and other issues, Windows Vista saw initial adoption and satisfaction rates lower than Windows XP. However, Vista usage had surpassed Microsoft's pre-launch 2-year-out expectations of achieving 200 million users, with an estimated 330 million Internet users in January 2009. On October 22, 2010, Microsoft ceased sales of retail copies of Windows Vista, and the original equipment. Userland Windows API, NTVDM, license proprietary commercial software preceded by Windows XP, 2001, succeeded by Windows 7, 2009. Official website Windows Vista, archived at Wayback Machine. Support status mainstream support ended on the 10th of April, 2012. Extended support ended on the 11th of April, 2017. 6. Installing a service pack is required for users to receive updates and support after April 13, 2010. Manufacturer sales for Vista ceased a year later. 8. Market share of Windows Vista fell below 1% by the of 2021, coinciding with the release of Windows 11. 9. Official mainstream support for Vista ended on April 10, 2012, and extended support ended on April 11, 2017, while the server equivalent, Windows Server 2008, had its mainstream support ended on January 13, 2015, 10, and extended support ended on January 14, 2020. 11. Both versions were succeeded by Windows 7 and Windows Server 2008 R2, respectively. As of February 2022, 0.18% of PCs run Windows Vista. 9. Unofficial methods can apply the security updates for Server 2008 to Windows Vista, because the former has a similar architecture. 12. Contents. Development Longhorn. Development reset. As Windows Vista. New or changed features. End user. Core. Security related. System management. Developer. Installation unification of OEM and retail installation. Removed features. Support life cycle. Additions. Visual styles. Hardware requirements. Physical memory limits. Processor limits. Updates. Service Pack 1. Service Pack 2. Platform update. Out-of-band patches. Bluekeep patch. Unofficial out-of-band patches. Text Services Framework patch. Malware Protection Engine patch. Termination of update services. Marketing campaign. The Mojave Experiment. Reception. Sales. Criticism. Hardware requirements. Licensing. Cost. Digital rights management. User account control. Downgrade rights. See also. Notes. References. External links. Development. Microsoft began work on Windows Vista, known at the time by its codename Longhorn, in May 2001, 5 months before the release of Windows XP. It was originally expected to ship in late 2003 as a minor step between Windows XP and Blackcomb, which was planned to be the company's next major operating system release. Gradually, Longhorn assimilated many of the important new features and technologies slated for Blackcomb, resulting in the release date being pushed back several times in 3 years. In some builds of Longhorn, their license agreement said for the Microsoft product codenamed Whistler. Many of Microsoft's developers were also retasked to build updates to Windows XP and Windows Server 2003 to strengthen security. Faced with ongoing delays and concerns about feature creep, Microsoft announced on the 27th of August, 2004, that it had revised its plans. For this reason, Longhorn was reset to start work on componentizing the Windows Server 2003 Service Pack 1 codebase, and over time reincorporating the features that would be intended for an actual operating system release. However, some previously announced features such as WinFS were dropped or postponed, and a new software development methodology called the Security Development Lifecycle was incorporated to address concerns with the security of the Windows codebase, which is programmed in C, C++ and assembly. Longhorn became known as Vista in 2005. 14, 15, Longhorn. The early development stages of Longhorn were generally characterized by incremental improvements and updates to Windows XP. During this period, Microsoft was fairly quiet about what was being worked on as their marketing and public relations efforts were more strongly focused on Windows XP and Windows Server 2003, which was released in April 2003. Occasional builds of Longhorn were leaked on two popular file-sharing networks such as IRC, BitTorrent, eDonkey and various news groups, and so most of what is. Desktop screenshot of Windows Longhorn build 4074, showing the Start menu, an early version of Windows Desktop sidebar, Windows Explorer, and the Slate visual style known about builds before the first sanctioned development release of Longhorn in May 2003 is derived from these builds. After several months of relatively little news or activity from Microsoft with Longhorn, Microsoft released Build 4008, which had made an appearance on the internet around February 28, 2003. 16. It was also privately handed out to a select group of software developers as an evolutionary release over Build 3683. It contained several small improvements, including a modified Blueplex theme and a new, simplified Windows image-based installer that operates in graphical mode from the outset, and completed an install of the operating system in approximately one-third the time of Windows XP on the same hardware. An optional new taskbar was introduced that was thinner than the previous build and displayed the time differently. The most notable visual and functional difference, however, came with Windows Explorer. The incorporation of the Plex theme made blue the dominant color of the entire application. The Windows XP style task pane was almost completely replaced with a large horizontal pane that appeared under the toolbars. A new search interface allowed for filtering of results, searching for Windows help, and natural language queries that would be used to integrate with WinFS. The animated search characters were also removed. The view modes were also replaced with a single slider that would resize the icons in real time in the list, thumbnail, or details mode, depending on where the slider was. File metadata was also made more visible and more easily editable, with more active encouragement to fill out missing pieces of information. Also of note was the conversion of Windows Explorer to being a .NET application. Most builds of Longhorn and Vista were identified by a label that was always displayed in the bottom right corner of the desktop. A typical build label would look like Longhorn Build 3683.lab06_n.020923-1821. Higher build numbers did not automatically mean that the latest features from every development team at Microsoft was included. Typically, a team working on a certain feature or subsystem will generate their working builds which developers would test with, and when the code was deemed stable, all changes would be incorporated back into the main development tree at once. At Microsoft, several build labs exist where the compilation of the entirety of Windows can be performed by a team. The name of the lab in which any given build originated is shown as part of the build label, and the date and time of build follow that. Some builds, such as Beta 1 and Beta 2, only display the build label in the version information dialog, WinVer. The icons used in these builds are from Windows XP. At the Windows Hardware Engineering Conference, WinHEC, in May 2003, Microsoft gave their first public demonstrations of the new desktop window manager and Aero. The demonstrations were done on a revised Build 4015 which was never released. Several sessions for developers and hardware engineers at the conference focused on these new features, as well as the next generation secure computing base, previously known as Palladium, which at the time was Microsoft's proposed solution for creating a secure computing environment whereby any given component of the system could be deemed trusted. Also at this conference, Microsoft reiterated their roadmap for delivering Longhorn, pointing to an early 2005 release date. 17. Development reset. By 2004, it had become obvious to the Windows team at Microsoft that they were losing sight of what needed to be done to complete the next version of Windows and ship it to customers. Internally, some Microsoft employees were describing the Longhorn project as another Cairo or Cairo.net, referring to the Cairo development project that the company embarked on through the first half of the 1990s, which never resulted in a shipping operating system, though nearly all the technologies developed in that time did end up in Windows 95 and Windows NT 18. Microsoft was shocked in 2005 by Apple's release of Mac OS X Tiger. It offered only a limited subset of features planned for Longhorn, in particular fast file searching and integrated graphics and sound processing, but appeared to have impressive reliability and performance compared to contemporary Longhorn builds. 19. Most Longhorn builds had major Windows Explorer system leaks which prevented the OS from performing well, and added more confusion to their development teams in later builds, with more and more code being developed which failed to reach stability. In the 23rd of September, 2005 front page article in the Wall Street Journal, 20, Microsoft co-president Jim Chin, who had overall responsibility for the development and delivery of Windows, explained how the development of Longhorn had been crashing into the ground due in large part to the haphazard methods by which features were introduced and integrated into the core of the operating system, without a clear focus on an end product. Chin went on to explain how in December 2003, he enlisted the help of two of the senior executives, Brian Valentine and Amitabh Srivastava, the former being experienced with shipping software at Microsoft, most notably Windows Server 2003, 21, and the latter having spent his career at Microsoft researching and developing methods of producing high-quality testing systems. 22. Srivastava employed a team of core architects to visually map out the entirety of the Windows operating system, and to proactively work towards a development process that would enforce high levels of code equality, reduce interdependencies between components, and in general, not make things worse with Vista. 23. Since Microsoft decided that Longhorn needed to be further componentized, work started on builds, known as the Omega 13 builds, that would componentize existing Windows Server 2003 source code, and over time add back functionality as development progressed. Future Longhorn builds would start from Windows Server 2003 Service Pack 1 and continue from there. This change, announced internally to Microsoft employees on the 26th of August, 2004, began in earnest in September, though it would take several more months before the new development process and build methodology would be used by all of the development teams. A number of complaints came from individual developers, and Bill Gates himself, that the new development process was going to be prohibitively difficult to work within. As Windows Vista. By approximately November 2004, the company had considered several names for the final release, ranging from simple to fanciful and inventive. In the end, Microsoft chose Windows Vista as confirmed on July 22, 2005, believing it to be a wonderful intersection of what the product really does, what Windows stands for, and what resonates with customers and their needs. Group Project Manager Greg Sullivan told Paul Thurrott, "You want the PC to adapt to you and help you cut through the clutter to focus on what's important to you. That's what Windows Vista is all about, bringing clarity to your world." A reference to 3 marketing points of Vista: clear, connected, confident, so you can focus on what matters. 24. Microsoft co-president Jim Chin also loved the name, saying that Vista creates the right imagery for the new product capabilities and inspires the imagination with all the possibilities of what can be done with Windows, making people's passions come alive. 25. After Longhorn was named Windows Vista in July 2005, an unprecedented beta test program was started involving hundreds of thousands of volunteers and companies. In September of that year, Microsoft started releasing regular community technology previews, CTP, to beta testers from July 2005 to February 2006. The first of these was distributed at the 2005 Microsoft Professional Developers Conference, and was subsequently released to beta testers and Microsoft Developer Network subscribers. The builds that followed incorporated most of the planned features for the final product, as well as a number of changes to the user interface, based largely on feedback from beta testers. Windows Vista was deemed feature complete with the release of the February CTP, released on the 22nd of February, 2006, and much of the remainder of the work between that build and the final release of the product focused on stability, performance, application and driver compatibility, and documentation. Beta 2, released in late May, was the first build to be made available to the general public through Microsoft's customer preview program. It was downloaded over 5 million times. 2 release candidates followed in September and October, both of which were made available to a large number of users. 26. At the Intel Developer Forum on the 9th of March, 2006, Microsoft announced a change in their plans to support EFI in Windows Vista. The UEFI 2.0 specification, which replaced EFI 1.10, was not completed until early 2006, and at the time of Microsoft's announcement, no firmware manufacturers had completed a production implementation which could be used for testing. As a result, the decision was made to postpone the introduction of UEFI support to Windows. Support for UEFI on 64-bit platforms was postponed until Vista Service Pack 1 and Windows Server 2008, and 32-bit UEFI would not be supported, as Microsoft did not expect many such systems to be built because the market was quickly moving to 64-bit processors. 27. 28. While Microsoft had originally hoped to have the consumer versions of the operating system available worldwide in time for the 2006 holiday shopping season, it announced in March 2006 that the release date would be pushed back to January 2007 in order to give the company and the hardware and software companies that Microsoft depends on for providing device drivers additional time to prepare. Because our last to manufacturing, RTM, build is the final version of code shipped to retailers and other distributors, the purpose of a pre-RTM build is to eliminate any last showstopper bugs that may prevent the code from responsibly being shipped to customers, as well as anything else that consumers may find annoying. Thus, it is unlikely that any major new features would be introduced. Instead, work would focus on Vista's fit and finish. In just a few days, developers had managed to drop Vista's bug count from over 2,470 on September 22 to just over 1,400 by the time RC2 shipped in early October. However, they still had a way to go before Vista was ready to RTM. Microsoft's internal processes required Vista's bug count to drop to 500 or fewer before the product could go into escrow for RTM. 29. For most of the pre-RTM builds, those 32-bit editions are only released. On the 14th of June, 2006, Windows developer Philip Su posted a blog entry which decried the development process of Windows Vista, stating that the code is way too complicated, and that the pace of coding has been tremendously slowed down by overbearing process. 30. The same post also described Windows Vista as having approximately 50 million lines of code, with about 2,000 developers working on the product. During a demonstration of the speech recognition feature new to Windows Vista at Microsoft's financial analyst meeting on the 27th of July, 2006, the software recognized the phrase "Dear Mom" as "Dear Aunt." After several failed attempts to correct the error, the sentence eventually became "Dear Aunt, let's set so double the killer delete select all. 31. A developer with Vista's speech recognition team later explained that there was a bug with the build of Vista that was causing the microphone gain level to be set very high, resulting in the audio being received by the speech recognition software being incredibly distorted. 32. Windows Vista build 5824